Welcome in. It is Clippers Talk. I'm at a Mosland and off-season edition for you guys as we're about a month out from the Clippers season ending. Good to be with you. If you want to find me on X, I'm at Follow Adam A, at Clippers Talk on the YouTube side, and at Follow Adam A Clippers Talk on Instagram, at Clippers Talk on TikTok, I think. I don't know. It's probably correct. Coming up on today's show, we're going to go to Clippers Reddit. I think I might make this a consistent segment. I don't know if that is a wise thing to do,
That sucks.
but I think it could be fun. It could be a little wacky, a little zany. It's bizarre, some of the subject matter they get into sometimes. And like any forum, it's not just Reddit, but things can get a little bit sideways and unhinged and mean-spirited. And there can be just a lot of inaccurate information or some really bad opinions. And I thought maybe I'd just go through some of the threads that are being talked about quickly and do like a weekly segment on it. They had me in a subreddit one time or whatever the hell it's called as they went after me before. So I'm sure Reddit people will really enjoy this.
It can always be worse.
It could be worse than me. It really could be. And it could be worse than Reddit too. But obviously, in the end, I'm just using it for content here. Make a segment out of it. Maybe I'll make a segment open out of it. Who we got in here? D. Damari, Alex Webb says he misses the shows every day. So do I. If I could do them every day, if I could find a way to afford to, I would, even during the off season. Also, in the second segment, I want to clear up a topic that was discussed on Clips and Dip on Friday with Justin Rousseau. Make sure to check out that show with myself, Chuck Mockler, Will Updike. We kind of got into it a little bit about Jonathan Kuminga and our feelings on whether or not the Clippers should pursue him this offseason, which goes into some big picture stuff in terms of team building and where they're at franchise-wise, and if they should keep doubling down or if this is another gap year or should the rebuild start now, all those things. I think Jonathan Kaminga's kind of a jumping off point where you can branch out into a lot of different subjects. We'll talk about that, but I want to start with this. First of all, the reason I'm doing a show back in the studio tonight is because I was tired of not being able to yell anymore. Being cooped up in my apartment with the cats and trying to be nice to the neighbors and trying to be a good neighbor, as I usually say at the end of the show, like Mr. Rogers or something, like love your neighbor. That was the greatest commandment above all others. I just wanted to get out of the house a little bit. You know, I had one of those lazy Sundays where I was justifying trying to take multiple naps. Like, oh, Adam, you know what? It's okay. You can get away with this. You can just have a day like this, recharge, whatever. You got some irons in the fire right now for job situations this summer. You're doing okay, right? Right? It's all right to just waste a day. And then I said, F that. Went to the gym, ran 10 miles, felt somewhat inspired. I was listening to Nick's Film School, which is a good podcast, and checking out their post-mortem on the season as they were taken out yesterday by the Indiana Pacers, who will be joining the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals. And I was kind of reinvigorated and felt like doing a show after that. Like, yeah, I want to talk about the Clippers some. They're talking about the Knicks and their season ending, and now there's 2 teams left, and there's just so much to talk about. And by the way, if you missed it, on Wednesday, we had Lauren Rosen on the show. Do not miss that. That was fun. It was kind of a quick half hour. You know, we often go much longer here on Clippers Talk, especially when I'm back in Burbank in the studio at iHeartMedia. So if you guys want to call in, that's available to you. Well, we have 3 different subjects that I'll go through on this show, and that's the rough outline and the rundown. You can also break it up at any point if you call in, because honestly, as I was listening to the Knicks Film School podcast and seeing him go through all the different comments, and I was just like, damn, they're reminiscing about the season. And, it was kind of an early knee-jerk reaction after they lost game 6 in Indiana and putting things in perspective. And I'm just like, I miss talking with Clipper Nation. I do. It's not the same. Like, I can do these shows from my house, but I can't take phone calls. I can read the comments, but it's not the same as phone calls. I can see that Tomara Zarli's in the comments section. It's not the same as a phone call. It just doesn't hit the same. It's not the same when I don't have my soundboard.
Woo!
And Clavon, who has plenty of sound here for Clipper Nation.
Put that, hey, let me get on the wall, too. Oh, shit. Don't let me get on that wall. I had that, put that shit up, man. Put it up, man. I had that straight up, hey, I had that, hey, put it up, poop emoji, Ben. Hey, Clippers Nation, if y'all ain't even did it yet, please do that. Put that poop emoji up, Ben. Put it up, exclamation point. Put it on there, man. Put it on a t-shirt. Put it on a ball cap.
Yeah, it's Clavon.
Put that shit up, man. Put it up.
Maybe I just miss Clavon. But I like having everything in front of me at my disposal to be able to use and do a real ass show, as opposed to when I'm just locked in the dungeon back in my apartment, having to talk much quieter and get my NPR voice on to make sure I don't disturb the neighbors. Here I can do whatever the hell I want. I can. Welcome to the PG-13 finals, says Old Dirty Dasher. Yeah, that's being thrown around a lot. I mentioned it the other day on Clips and Dip. Paul George built both of these teams. If you go through the kind of family tree, follow the tentacles history of the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers, both these teams that are the best two teams in the NBA were built upon trading away Paul George, and now they've ended up in this position, battling it out for a championship. It's interesting. I'm sure he'll comment on it on Podcast P. He has to. You cannot avoid the elephant in the room. Hey, I gave Paul George love for just the fact that when he brought the podcast back after a long hiatus, because you shut it down to focus on winning a championship with Philly after they were like 12th in the East, that's when he realized it's time to go underground, lockdown mode, and really just focus on basketball. It was a little too late for that, but give him credit. When he came back for that first episode, I forget the rapper's name, who he had on, but big Philly guy, wasn't Meek Mills, more of an OG, and he was heavily critical the entire time of the season the Sixers had, representing the fan base, and was heavily critical of Paul George to his face, right there in front of him. So I'll give PG-13 credit there for facing the music a little bit. That was the right way, the proper way to come back. You can't avoid it when you have a season that poorly, when you play that poorly. Coach White said the year he was with the Clippers, he averaged 12 to 14 points in college. It was nothing about SGA for him to hold up a trade. Of course, fans knew he was going to be good. We knew he was going to be good. That doesn't tell you much about the wide spectrum of how good he could be. What does good mean? He makes an all-star team or two. He makes an all-NBA team. He wins an MVP, wins a finals MVP. Good doesn't zero down a real prediction about SGA, because I got to be honest, I didn't hear many people say he was going to be this good. Now, as we enter this week, and I have labeled this show Hell Week, like it was, back in high school, if you played football, they called it Hell Week, when the ramp up during maybe the off season or right before the season started to get back in shape, they would have you doing 2 or 3 a days out there, and the coach would really put you through a rigorous workload to get you back into shape. And that used to happen in the NFL, but I don't think they can do 2-a-days anymore. They want to let them do one. The rules have changed and all these things. And old man yelling at clouds say, back in my day, we used to run uphill both ways with our spikes on. Yeah, I get it. Times change. This is going to be hell week for Clipper Nation. Because, well, the media has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off before game 1 of the NBA Finals. What does that mean? With game 1 not being till Thursday, Thunder hosting the Indiana Pacers. They have a lot of time on their hands. I got time today now, cuz. And with all that time, and with all these storylines and segments to fill, well, that means they're going to be in a position to look back upon how both teams got here, which probably means they will also acknowledge the Paul George NBA Finals Invitational as he helped build both these teams. But it's also going to mean, this is why it's hell week for Clipper Nation, they're going to revisit over and over and over again how SGA was traded from the Clippers to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they're going to try to make us look like fools. And it's going to be painful. And it's already started somewhat. You're seeing it out there. And I just want to warn you guys. What's that spiritual armor you're supposed to put on? There's going to be spiritual warfare going on. Hey, it's Sunday. That's what it's going to be like for Clipper Nation this week. Prepare yourself for Hell Week. Because maybe it's turn your TV off, Kendrick Lamar style for you, and you just don't want to hear it at all. Maybe that's the right move. Stay off of social media. Typically, I advise that after the Clippers, have a flame out in the playoffs. Just get off there. It's not going to be good. It's going to be painful for a while. Should you do the same right now? With all this talk about SGA, even if they're not bringing up the Clippers directly and what they gave up in the trade to build a dynasty for the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll see how that turns out. This is their first opportunity. This is the first time they've gotten further than the Clippers have since the trade. For a while, the Clippers gone to the, Western Conference Finals, and OKC was first couple of years still a 20-win team. Up until last year, hadn't made it past the first round. So now you can say with conviction that yes, the Oklahoma City Thunder won the trade. Does that mean the trade was idiotic? And many people first guessed it? Not really. There's a difference to me. There's nuance to me. And this matters to me. I look at the Lakers trade with the Dallas Mavericks and what Nico Harrison did. That was first guessed. That was dead on arrival. That was, what the hell is going on? How could you ever make this move? Why are you helping out the Lakers? This is completely one-sided. One team is fleecing the other. People didn't feel like that when the Clippers traded SGA, Gallinari, and 5 first-round picks to the Oklahoma City Thunder to get Paul George, which got them Kawhi Leonard. They didn't feel like that. How do I know this? How do I know there's a lot of revisionist history going on right now versus what was said the day of? Which to me is how you should grade most things. How did you feel in the moment before you had the hindsight bias? Before you had the knowledge we have now? Because you can't make a decision based upon, the knowledge 6 years later. That's not how it works. So grade it on all the facts and information you had then, and that's probably how I'm going to determine whether or not you made the right move. Was it actually good process or not? Is how I often look at things. Was it logical? Was it rational? Was it well thought out? Did it make sense? Common sense? Were there things you should have foreseen? Should you have been able to know that Kawhi was going to tear his ACL in the second round in 2021? Take that misstep next to Joe Ingles. Should Lawrence Frank in the front office had known that? What was in your control? What did you know as opposed to what was just bad luck? Clippers luck. If it wasn't for bad luck, they wouldn't have any at all. That's typically how I look at things. Now, again, there's a difference between admitting they lost the trade or the trade failed as opposed to they shouldn't have made the trade. Those are two different things. Because I would say, look at it from this perspective. If you have a chance to trade the 11th pick in the draft, who was averaging about 10 points per game, who lost in the first round on a Clippers team that, granted, was an all-timer and maybe my favorite Clippers team, the 2018-2019 squad, for the Finals MVP at the age of 27, not a Finals MVP, not he won it in 2014. He was the reigning Finals MVP in Kawhi Leonard. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they didn't trade him for that. Yes, they did. Everything they gave up for Paul George was to get Kawhi Leonard. Anybody saying otherwise is being disingenuous, and they just want to throw up the graphic and say, look at all they gave up for Paul George. That's the worst trade in NBA history. Well, if you want to be intellectually dishonest and completely avoid context and make an argument devoid of context, go right ahead. Those people aren't worth my time. Sadly, I often give it to them because I can't help myself. I just know where I was then. I know the Clippers talk show I did then on that very day. And here's an example of somebody who just ignores context. Spirit detective here. It's the responsibility of the front office and team to know better and protect the players from themselves. Doesn't matter your excuse making. Worst trade in NBA history. I suppose if you just look at this on its face, Paul George for SGA, Danilo Gallinari, all the picks, the pick swaps, the redirecting first round picks from Miami. Yeah, it looks that bad. Is that being honest about the trade and how it came about? Because technically, it was for Paul George. When you know there's no way in hell that if they weren't getting Kawhi Leonard out of that trade, that they would actually give up that much for Paul George. That's crazy. And we all know that. But some people, Lakers fans usually, will misrepresent it, distort it, twist it to fit a narrative that makes the Clippers look like fools. And it's just BS to me. So, when my BS alarm goes off, I don't get mad. I get even. I put together a video that you can find in the video section on YouTube or at Follow Adam A, pinned to my profile on X, that I think is slightly more accurate to the prevailing sentiment of what people thought of the trade when it actually went down on what, June 10th or 29th, whatever. It was summer of 2019 when the earthquakes happened. This is, to me, how you should be grading it. And all the people now, this week, as we go through Hell Week with having to hear about SGA being traded over and over again by these same people in the media that are going to act like they knew it all along. They knew it was a bad trade for the Clippers. How could they have done this? Well, I have the receipts. And those people, if they start doing that, I hope you arm yourself with this video and maybe give it a retweet, throw it underneath them in the comment section, and let them know and remind them how they reacted to the trade in real time back in 2019.
And listen, I understand the trade haul is unprecedented, but you cannot look at the Clippers gave up that for Paul George. They gave up that for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You got the reigning finals MVP and maybe the next best two-way wing in the league, a top 5 player and now also a top 15 player. That's the price of that, both on long-term deals.
And before you know it, the Clippers got both of their guys for the future. Brilliant moves by Uncle Dennis. I want to see if I can be a part of the family.
He was playing chess. Everyone else is playing checkers.
So it's not like it's bare bones there, Linda. There's still a foundation there. And yes, it costs you Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari. And I think when you're getting a player like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, the picks are worth it.
Was they the favorite in the West now?
I think you have to give them the edge. I couldn't believe that anybody would come to me with a proposition that would say there's somebody better than the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But the Clippers were clearly a better team this year. And when you talked about them getting Kawhi Leonard, you only thought about him. But if you have Kawhi Leonard with Paul George and you have 2 stars on your team with the Los Angeles Clippers, with the depth that they have, with the coaching staff that they have, with the resources that they have, etc. I can't knock anybody right now who would think that the Clippers might very well be above the Lakers in the pecking order.
But right now, I think the Clippers are the best team in the league. I think for a few reasons. Number one, their team fits together better. At least right now, like we look at the Lakers and we kind of wonder, okay, is Boogie, does he even fit in today's game?
You cannot double Kawhi Leonard when Paul George is on the floor. So you got 2 guys who are the best possibly in their position at times, one-on-one players that will get to play one-on-one. That in itself, that's what made Michael Jordan so great. He didn't have guys that you did double.
So I think this is a huge day for the Clippers organization as far as getting 2 marquee stars in their prime, a 2-time MVP in the finals in Kawhi Leonard, being able to lead the charge and now kind of give Paul George a little tutelage when it comes to leading a team to a possible championship.
Kendrick Perkins, who has been pretty loud during this whole free agency process, said, "I love it. Happy for the LA Clippers and Doc Rivers for pulling this one off and kept it quiet the whole time. WTF happened in OKC? That's the real question."
Well, I mean, it sounds like a great tandem. I mean, it sounds like a great tag team. And, I mean, now, immediately, I don't understand. I got to hear more as we go on about why Oklahoma City would be so accommodating to the Clippers. For what? Was Paul George first team or second team All-NBA? And either way, we're talking about a top 10 player in the league this season, and now Oklahoma City doesn't have him to accommodate the Clippers. That's going to take some, digesting as we sort of filter through this the next couple of days. But Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I mean, yeah, why not? Who wouldn't want that? And it doesn't seem like you've given up the guts of it. You still got an ensemble around them.
So the point is, I'm giving the Clippers the edge because of, number one, defense. They're a much better defensive team than the Lakers.
No question.
Number two, they have a closer, and I'm not sure who closes for the Lakers.
That was a red alert sign. The Clippers would likely have to acquire a second star in order to land Kawhi, possibly using the war chest of trade assets they built up over this past year. And my reaction then and now is the same. There is no price that's too high for the Clippers in this scenario.
There is no price too high for the Clippers in this scenario, said Rachel Nichols there. So I'm going to ask you again. Should the Clippers have known that things would go this poorly based upon the information we had back in 2019? Or is them losing the trade mostly because of bad luck, things out of their control, unforeseen circumstances, the bubble, Kawhi tearing his ACL, not being able to stay healthy, and that was the main reason why they lost the trade? And oh yeah, SGA turning into a guy that nobody saw coming, not to this level. Somebody in here said, I know Doc Rivers thought he could be an all-star. Great. The difference between an all-star, I said all-star at the time, the difference between that and what he has become now, a number one option on a team that's about to win the championship, those two things are worlds apart. No one predicted this. No one said SGA was going to be this good, this dominant. Did you listen to all those people? Michael Wilbon going, what's in this for OKC? Why are they so accommodating to the Clippers? How many of them even brought up SGA? One guy there, I think, it was Bobby Marks, and he said you have to do it. It's worth it. How many of them even said that SGA was something that, oh, yeah, reluctantly, yeah, you have to do it, but he's going to be so good. They barely even brought up his name when talking about this trade. They were more worried about the picks than SGA. And now those same people during Hell Week, especially the next 3 days, because they got nothing better to do until game 1 on Thursday, are going to be acting like, oh, I knew SGA would be this good, or I knew the Clippers should have done that trade, or, oh, that was too big of a price to give up. How could they? The same network, ESPN, is going to continue to show that graphic that says everything they gave up for Paul George. When all these people on ESPN were saying at the time, well, this isn't for Paul George. It's to get Paul George to get Kawhi Leonard. Hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say the trade failed now, or they should have known better now, or what were the Clippers thinking? Show me all the people saying it then. Show me all the people saying it then. Nobody can ever predict, Kevin, that a guy is going to turn into an MVP who was the 11th pick in the draft and averaging 10 points per game in his rookie year. Our front office should have known. No one can know that. No matter how hard of a worker a guy is, the amount of things that have to go right in your career and how driven you have to be behind the scenes and circumstances having to line up just right, which they did in OKC. He got the keys there. He wouldn't have had them with the Clippers to develop this fast, probably. SGA probably isn't this guy. This good, isn't the MVP at least, if he stayed with them. Like, it all worked out. There's two things that went against the Clippers that are so unbelievable. And the odds of these two things happening to make this trade look so lopsided right now is unbelievable. Number one, all the bad luck that happened to the Clippers. You bring in a guy at 27 who was the reigning finals MVP, and everybody at the time was saying Kawhi is the best player in the game. Loads of articles were saying that. Experts, analysts. Kawhi's the best in the game. He took the mantle from LeBron. That's what they were saying in 2019, or he took it from KD. He just won finals MVP. It was the chase for Kawhi all summer long. The amount of coverage for it was incredible. The helicopter shots, the fervor surrounding getting Kawhi Leonard and trying to get him into the building, and the battle in the arms race was extensive. Then you also get Paul George out of it. And if you listen to the video I just played, Listen how everybody's talking about Paul George. At worst, they said he's a top 15 guy. Michael Wilbon was like, he's a top 10 player this year. He's also in his prime at 28, coming off his best season as a pro. Yes, he got better after the leg injury. He continued to get better. Were there some injury concerns? Sure. How many people were bringing them up then? No, they were just talking about how the Clippers had to do it, how it makes all the sense in the world. It's a monumental day for the Clippers. They beat the Lakers out and bringing in Kawhi Leonard. They're trying to win the battle for Los Angeles. It was a watershed moment. It was a turning point in the organization. The first time they brought in the guy everybody wanted, and he chose them. If you want to say they lost the trade, it failed, fine. But don't tell me, well, they shouldn't have done it in the first place. Get out of here. Because the amount of people that actually said that when it happened, I've been scouring Twitter for receipts on this, and I do have a couple coming up. Because I did a 3-hour show. The trade happened late Friday night. Saturday, I went on 570 and did 3 hours talking about the Clippers and had Ralph Lawler on and Bill Plaschke on. Some heavy hitters to get perspective on this. I think Brian Seaman, of course. And I took calls. And not one was like, oh, this is a bad day for Clipper Nation. Oh, they gave up too much. Nobody was saying that. So now, this week, and over the next 2 or 3 weeks, as I fully believe the Thunder are about to win the championship, we're going to hear a bunch of people revisit this and act like they knew and the Clippers screwed up. If they get another chance to bring in the reigning finals MVP in his prime and a top 10 to 15 player in his prime, and they're both wings, by all means, make the trade again. Because the majority of the time, it works out. The majority of the time, your guys don't all end up injured at the worst moments, and the other guy in the trade doesn't end up going on to be the best player in the league and winning the MVP. Those two things happening at the same time, those two extraordinary, unbelievable events happening like this, you could say it's Clippers luck. It's incredible. I remember the late, great Jerry West going on the podcast P a couple of years ago and saying, I've never seen, 2-star players that have been so snake bit with injuries, talking to Paul George and talking about him and Kawhi. Like, it's just shit luck. But it doesn't mean you don't make those moves and do them again if you get the opportunity to. You take that swing. You know how hard it'd be, especially in the new CBA, to end up with the reigning finals MVP and a top 10 to 15 player? And the Clippers had that good fortune go their way, we thought, just for it to turn out like this. It's unbelievable. So if you want to play the blame game and say that they shouldn't have done it, or now everybody wants to argue, well, Kawhi asked for too much. And it's like, guys, Kawhi had all the leverage in the world. He was at the very top of the NBA. He was the guy. Don't tell me he couldn't ask for whatever he wanted to at that time. Of course he could. Everybody caters to stars, especially ones they're trying to lure in. Especially if you're considered the consensus best player in the game at that time. The second guessing has gotten way out of control. The people not even acknowledging the fact that, Kawhi's only coming if they do the trade for Paul George. That idea of, if we just could have got him and kept SGA. No, OKC wasn't doing the trade without SGA. Kawhi wasn't coming without Paul George. All the reporting says this. At some point, you got to leave it in the rear view and keep pushing. Then you got Garrett saying, don't worry, Adam. We're getting Giannis and LaMelo this offseason. He's probably trolling. Kidding. Being facetious. I don't know. I am all for holding people accountable when I feel like it's deserved. I'm not killing Lawrence Frank over this because everybody thought it was the right move, including the greatest exec in the history of basketball, Jerry West, signed off on it. Every expert thought so. Every analyst. You want to go after him for the Hartenstein stuff or Russ and giving it to stars then, fine. This was obvious. You had to do it. Especially if you were the Clippers and you were looking to get a foothold in LA and turn a corner against the Lakers and all the other entertainment outlets we have here. It didn't work because of two unbelievable things happening with SGA turning out to be this good. And more importantly, the Clippers having just the worst injury luck ever. That's it. Could you have predicted those two things? Well, if you did, great. Buy a lottery ticket because nobody else is out there saying it. Although there were a few people that kind of predicted it. I asked on Twitter, somebody was coming after me. I asked somebody to produce some receipts because I hadn't seen any yet from 2019. Any receipts where somebody said, hey, actually, Adam, there were some people that first guessed it. Okay. Apparently, there were some people on the fringes of the internet back then that did. And it's only fair to acknowledge them. Wale A. Pfizer, Wale_base said on July 5th, the Clippers straight up disrespected Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Buddy is a bucket. Shame on how teams do these young players. No room for development. Sick. All right. There's one. Here's another one. What's up, folks? Said on July 6, 2019. Waking up to this. Clippers gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for PG. Not sure why they did that. Now, maybe he didn't see the news yet that it got them Kawhi Leonard. But I will say, hey, congrats to Marvin or what's up, folks here. You were right. Here's another one. Jared French. The Clippers, though, ? Really wasn't expecting that at all. Literally the last of the three teams I thought he'd sign to. I feel bad for my man, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Does that qualify as first guessing it? I guess. Ray Daniel said, Clippers will regret for trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to OKC because Clippers don't have a passer-minded point guard in their roster. Okay. I guess we'll give it to him. Congrats, Ray. Steve here. July 6, 2019. Clippers gave up a ton to get Paul George. Way too much. I like Paul George, but the biggest shot he ever hit was in a Gatorade commercial. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should not have been included in that package deal. I mean, again, he was missing the part where he had to do it to get Kawhi, but I'll give it to him. Steve, you were right. Tim Harney said this on July 6, 2019. My thoughts on this trade. OKC fans shouldn't be that upset. Clippers may win a few championships, but they also set their future walking out the door. I don't think I'm trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and 5 first-round picks for PG. I know the guy's awesome, but seriously? Clippers may win a few championships. Sure felt like they were winning at least one in 2021 before Kawhi did his knee. All right, Tim, I'll give it to you. Kara and Deb. One silver lining of the Thunder imploding, blowing it up, is that they have their point guard of the future coming over in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If the Clippers win a title or two, they'll be fine, but there's a real chance SGA will be looked upon as one that got away. Kara and Deb, you win. I got to give it to you. Somebody else, Deratius, just did a Drake, I can't believe this, hands over his head GIF after he found out about the trade. This was the Clippers when OKC traded for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Felicia's burner said Clippers really traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander so that Kawhi can have his jersey. I don't know if that was much of a prediction. I can't give it to him. Magna Carter said on July 6, 2019, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going to be nice. I wish the Clippers could have kept him. We all wish they could have kept him. Nobody said, hey, it's great that we got rid of him. We all were like, damn, sucks that they had to give up SGA. We also all said, you have to do it. I'm not going to give it to him. Sam Teal said, I'm still low-key upset that the Clippers traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I got his My City jersey last year. Okay. But would you have still done it? Mikey Roberts said, there's no doubting Paul George is a top 10 player in the league, but to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Gallo, and a record-setting trove of picks from the Clippers seems to me like the Clips and Lakers might have depleted future assets. I guess it's typical LA cockiness. So there were a few people out there first guessing it. I gave them their respect. Hey, it's only fair. I've been asking for anyone to produce some receipts on those that first guessed the trade. If you guys want to call in and tell me how upset you are right now with it, or if you were one of those that, hey, I lost my Twitter account, but I said it too that day. A couple people have been doing that. 877-520-1150, 877-520-1150. Thomas Ortega said, we traded the NBA MVP. We will never win a title in our lifetimes. This is like Red Sox trading Babe Ruth. We should all retire from being Clippers fans. So if the Red Sox did, what have they won 4 now since they broke the curse in 2004? So what's the curse here? Some people said it was the curse of Donald Sterling. He's been gone. How do they get over this? What did the Red Sox do? They just won it finally. Same with the Cubs. They just were better. They just did it. Do we need a bloody sock moment? Do we need to run up against another cursed team like the Cubs did, having to take on it was the Cleveland Indians is what they were called at the times. At the time they played them. Won that championship, 2016? There was a rain delay in Game 7. It was super dramatic. Ezio said, we all love Shai, but for Kawhi and PG, I'm doing that 10 out of 10 times again. The philosophy of, regardless of the names of the players, just know that I am always for giving up a player with potential. How high that potential may be, we don't really know. But I will say, most people at the time were like, Shai could be an all-star, make a couple of all-star teams. That's what they thought. I'm all for giving that guy up for a guy who has not just made all-star teams, but one guy who is the reigning finals MVP and another guy who was top 3 in MVP and Defensive Player of the Year voting. I would always give up a player with potential for 2 guys that are known commodities like that. You have to. RB said, I will sacrifice myself to break the curse. I'm a team player. Garrett said, I think the Clippers need to acquire extremely injury-prone and cursed players. Maybe it'll work in reverse. Interesting theory on how to break the curse. I don't believe in curses, by the way, for the reasons stated. Like, there was no seance. There was no dark magic used, to my knowledge, for the Red Sox to overcome it. They just, they had the heartbreak the year before, losing in 7 to the Yankees on the RIP Tim Wakefield walk-off home run by Aaron Boone. And then they came back and got Kurt Schilling and traded Nomar, got some pieces, and this time they won. They were in, maybe it's the Clippers need to get down 3-0, like the Red Sox did, to their most bitter rival, get down 3-0 to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, win 4 straight, do something nobody's done before. That's how you exercise the demons, overcoming the toughest odds ever. Izio said Kawhi made the Clippers a destination spot. I do think, and I've been saying, Kawhi represents more than just being a great player coming to the Clippers. He represents the first player like that to make them a destination franchise. It's symbolic of them turning to a transformative, moment in Clippers history and turning the page and having a new chapter where, yes, now you have proven that you can land the best players, something they couldn't do before under previous ownership. So even if Kawhi can't lead him to a ring in his last couple of years here, and who knows how long he's with the Clippers, he's got 2 more years left on his contract. And, if they won a ring and Kawhi led them to one, then it was a win-win trade. There's still time, but right now, got to say they're losing the trade. The OKC Thunder have made it further. They're in the finals, and they look to have the best window to build a dynasty in the sport. Maybe one of the last dynasties with the new CBA, and how we've had 7. We're going to have 7 champions in the last 7 years, 7 different champions, I should say. 7 different teams are going to have won the championship over the last 7 years. Parity reigns supreme. Adam Silver did it. It is harder to win, go back-to-back, certainly three-peat. But I just thought I'd talk about this one more time before Hell Week begins, which starts tomorrow. I mean, not that I watch First Take or any of these stupid-ass shows anyways, First Things First or whatever it is on FS1. But people do. Prepare yourself, arm yourself, and watch the video of all these same experts patting themselves on the back, no doubt this week, and creating a false reality that didn't exist at the time in 2019 and being like, oh, I knew the Clippers shouldn't have done it. How could they have done it? And when ESPN throws up that graphic 10 times this week to try to make the Clippers look bad, just know it wasn't for Paul George. We all knew it was for Kawhi Leonard. We don't have to be dishonest like that. So before we get to our new Reddit segment, I'll just scroll through and see what some of the topics are on Reddit this week, because, well, they can get a little bit nasty, a little bit unhinged, a little bit ludicrous. And that can make for a fun segment. That Mexican Nara said, I think Kawhi was just the first championship caliber player to willingly sign with the Clippers. Blake and CP3 showed the Clippers were a destination. No, they drafted Blake. He couldn't choose them. Like, now you can say he stayed with them in 2018. I think it's different. Kawhi was legitimately thought of as the best player in the league in 2019. after winning the NBA Finals, and could have gone anywhere and went to the Clippers, including he could have gone to the Lakers and went to the Clippers. I think it's different. I'm not discounting those, but that's when the organization became a destination franchise. Kawhi. Blake did put him on the map because of his highlight dunks, Sports Center, everything. He also, he could get more money from the Clippers at that time when he signed that contract than he could anywhere else, so there was an incentive to stay. Kawhi was getting the same money regardless of where he went. It was even. All right. So there was a conversation we had on Friday night with Justin Rousseau on Clips and Dip, Chuck Mockler, Will Updike, myself. And it was regarding a subject that we've broached a few different times on C&D, but I haven't really done it here on Clippers Talk. And I'm kind of getting more and more passionate about it. As I looked over the numbers the last few years for this player that could be available, maybe, possibly. He's young. And I know you guys want some young guys and some fresh meat and some new blood with this team. He's young. He's athletic. I know you guys have been looking for that too. And he's a bit of an unknown in terms of who he can be in this league because of his age and because of the lack of minutes he has been getting over the years. Jonathan Kuminga is the player I speak of. Jonathan Kuminga is a mystery box. We have no idea what his full potential is. We have no idea just how good he could be. People have trouble giving comps to him. Is he just a really good athlete? Is he a number 3 on a championship team? Can he be a number 1 option? Can he be a number 2 option? He's only 22 years of age. He's been in the league for, I think, 4 years now. But we still know so little about him and what his upside and potential is. That is what intrigues me. Yeah, this last year was his 4th. Averaging 15 a game this season, shooting 45% from the field, just 31% from the outside. Why doesn't Steve Kerr like him? What's his problem with Jonathan Kuminga? It has been a discussion going on up in NorCal for years. Warriors fans are divided. Many of them love to hate on Steve Kerr for not playing him. Is it Kuminga's a bad fit for their team? Or is he a bad fit because he's just not that good of an NBA player at this level? I am somebody that's a proponent of his and have been for some time. In fact, I pulled a tweet from 2022 a few shows ago here on Clippers Talk where I said something to the effect of Jonathan Kaminga is going to be a star. That was in 2022. He has a championship ring, obviously. He was with them. He played on that run. He didn't play, heavy minutes. That was his rookie year. In fact, the most minutes he played in a game, let me show you here. He played 6 minutes per game in the first round against Denver, 15 per game in the second round against Memphis. He only played in 3 of, how many games was it? 6 games, I think, against Dallas. And then played in 4 of the 6 games against Boston. So he didn't exactly get a ton of championship level of playoff experience, but he got some. It's not nothing for a rookie. He had 1 game against Memphis. It was a blowout where he played 24 minutes and had 17 points, but they lost badly. Against Dallas in a 10-point loss, he played 22 minutes and had 17 points. But we got into a conversation. I want to see if I can pull this up here on Clips and Dip because I felt like I didn't do a good job representing my side of the argument. I wanted to flesh it out a little bit more. DJ, maybe? Okay.
The 20-point and beyond dreams.
So here's Chuck Mockler talking about he's kind of gone back and forth on whether or not he likes Jonathan Kuminga or he'd be interested in bringing him in with the Clippers. Here was Chuck here on a quote from, this was Anthony Slater, and I should find it as well. Anthony Slater. I wonder what his middle name is. Can we get an AC Slater reference in here? I know Anthony Slater, he's covered the Golden State Warriors for a while. I've had him on Clippers Talk before. I want to see if I can find the quote so I don't have to just go through a ton of audio here. Keep it to a minimum if I can. Come on. What show was he on? Okay. Regardless, Jonathan Kaminga for some time has just been, the ultimate unknown. Who is he as a player? We'll just get a Chuck Mockler on it right here.
The 20-point and beyond dreams he spent, but flipped me. This is from Anthony Slater. He said, Kuminga, league sources said, still has visions of becoming an all-star, not fitting into an ever-moving mid-tier rotation role. He wants to be a featured player in the NBA offense and chase the 20-point and beyond dreams he spent his life chasing in the last week of his 4th season tasting.
That's exquisite writing. That is incredible writing by Anthony Slater. First off,
it sounds like incredible. It sounds like a very nice statement written by someone's PR team. Is what it sounds.
No, I thought that was actually very eloquent. I was hooked.
That's what made me flip. Is I'm like, this is not like he already turned down the huge contract from the Warriors because he was like, I can definitely get more than this. Will not get more than that before this.
Apparently, he was offered $150 million before this season started. The max for him will be $224. He's a restricted free agent with Golden State.
It just doesn't seem like everything. I'm scared off from this. I don't want to give him $30 million a year. I don't know. I just don't know.
And I totally understand where Chuck is coming from. The quote with Kaminga talking about, the dream of being a 20-point per game scorer. It wasn't from him, but from Anthony Slater, is a little bit curious. He's from the Congo, right? So, English, could there be something lost in translation there?
I will for just 3 years.
Yeah, I'm with it for 3 years, as I said there. 3 years, $30 million a year, $90 million contract. I'm interested in Jonathan Kaminga for that price, fully. And I'll outline that in a little bit here as we go through some more of the audio.
Knowing Steve Kerr as a coach, if he's not putting you out there, it's for a reason.
That was Justin Rousseau. I bring up how Jason Tatum wasn't played during the Olympics. I guess he had a good reason for not playing the guy who's just won the finals last year. And that was also divisive.
I get it.
Jason Tatum agree?
Well, that's a different reason, but also, hey, maybe Steve Kerr is a wizard and foresaw what could happen to Jason down the line.
Oh, God.
He's a warlock.
To be fair, they did also win the gold medal.
In 6 games.
I'm referencing the old George Costanza talking with Bernie Williams and Derek Jeter in 96 after they won the World Series, and he's telling them about exit velo before anybody knew what it was, which was a funny scene back in Seinfeld. I would also say that it's yes, they won the gold like they should. They were the most stacked team, and they were still down 20 to Serbia. And also, I don't think they necessarily lose in the Olympics by playing Jason Tatum. So I don't know. That's just a weird situation with Steve Kerr and who he plays sometimes. As somebody that is somewhat close, being from NorCal to the Golden State Warriors situation, and Big Mike and my cousin with the Golden State Warriors coming on with us a few different times. And that's always been a head scratcher for Golden State Warriors fans. Why is Kaminga playing more? Or Kerr's rotations in general? Does he just hate young guys? Like, that has been a point of contention and criticism on Steve Kerr. And then after what happened in the Olympics with Jason Tatum not playing much, like, I don't know. Do we just say, well, Steve Kerr won't play Jonathan Kuminga, so therefore you shouldn't want Jonathan Kuminga? I don't feel like that.
His dream is to chase 20 points a game. Great. Cool. No, like, what is that?
20 isn't even that high, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be that guy, I don't know. Like, it was funny. I was like, why not 30?
20 is insane.
Is something lost in translation maybe a little bit with the quote?
I'm
Can you
just
play
reading
some
what
defense?
I was offered.
Can you give me 15 points a game in defense and rebounding? I don't need the extra 5 points.
And that's fair. Can you be a more well-rounded player and not just an empty calorie guy who puts up 20 plus points, but on a bad team where, you don't feel like you actually are going anywhere of significance? So I found the Anthony Slater article just to reiterate what Jonathan Kaminga said. So we could kind of pursue this conversation a little bit more, since I seem to be the lone guy in the camp of bringing in Jonathan Kaminga versus the other guys on C&D. But I'll let you hear more of this conversation as we extrapolate a little bit more here.
But that's not there. And it hasn't been. Kuminga's still young, and I think our phrasing of players when they're young is that they can always get better, and that's true, but progress is never linear in anything in life, and if you pay him $30 million next year, you're assuming he improves, but what if he doesn't? Now you're just stuck with a $30 million a year albatross that you can't move.
And you might not be happy. That's the other part, is it? Then it's like, then we're in another kind of weird era of Clippers locker room stuff, which might be not worth freaking out. But
I don't know.
My point is 30 is not going to kill you if it's only 3 years with how much room they're going to have coming up.
I think the 3 years. I like the 3 years.
That is my point. I think the Clippers are in a position because Ivica Zubac is the only guy currently on the books in the summer of 2027. That could change. Maybe Norm gets a long extension. Maybe Harden gets more than 2 years. But right now, to me, the Clippers are well set up that not only are we talking about one guy being brought in, but two. So I'm not as $30 million a year is not nothing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not as hung up on that as some others are, but that's my position. And looking at what Anthony Slater, writer for The Athletic, New York Times, has talked about recently with him, he said, in regard to Kaminga's situation, the base year compensation rule in the CBA is a critical impediment. Assuming Kaminga gets at least a 20% raise, he will, and his new deal takes the Warriors over the cap, it will. The incoming salary will only count as 50% of Kaminga's outgoing salary for matching purposes. Basically, he says if Kaminga's next deal starts at $30 million, his next team absorbs it as such. But the Warriors would be looking at a $15 million incoming match. They could exceed it by 125%, $18.75 million in this scenario. But if they were to take $1 more than the theoretical match, $15 million in this scenario, they'd be hard capped at the first apron. Leaving all the accounting intricacies to the side, here's what matters. That combination punch, the base year rule plus first apron cap, significantly limits the amount of sign and trade opportunities that can realistically be executed. Other salaries at full price could be added. The Warriors front office, Kuminga's representatives in the league is expected to explore all options into July. But team sources have been hinting that because of these market and financial restrictions, there's a likely world where the most obvious and prudent path is for them to bring Kuminga back and figure the rest out later. This is Anthony Slater, who I do trust from The Athletic. Tim Kawakami, there's no slight against him, but it just seems like they feed him stories. They give him guys for his podcast from the Golden State Warriors because, I did criticize him with the report last summer about the Paul George trade and who was available and who wasn't. And at the time, he made it sound like Kaminga was on the table. So it kind of upset Clippers fans. They were like, well, a lot of them were like, make the move. Get a young player in here. I was questioning whether or not Kaminga was actually available, and it turns out he wasn't. But they were trying to appease Warriors fans at that time, basically saying, hey, we couldn't get a trade done for Paul George, even though you guys are starving to bring in another guy to Golden State right now to help out Steph Curry in his later years, and the fan base was up in arms about it because the Clippers didn't want to do it. Not because we weren't willing to offer everything. We were willing to give up Kaminga pods. The truth was they weren't. Look at the reporting from Young-Masuk, which I could pull up here in a little bit. But the truth is Kaminga was not, and the young guys were not available for the Clippers in that, weekend of trade reporting that was going on. This was, I think, like right before and right after free agency started, where the Clippers were trying to work out a deal of trading Paul George with Golden State, but they weren't getting the return they were looking for, which was not just Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody. They wanted to get a young guy out of it and a draft pick. Tim Kawakami made it seem like, oh, no, Golden State was willing to deal with them. It was the Clippers not willing to deal with Golden State. That didn't turn out to be true, based upon the reporting from Brian Windhorst, Young-Masuk, and there was one other. Like a month or two later, it came out. And I was questioning it immediately from Tim Kawakami because it just seems like he's kind of a mouthpiece for the organization in some ways. I could be wrong about that, but at that time, I went pretty hard after him. I respect him. This is isn't definitive by any stretch of the imagination. More from Anthony Slater now. From The Athletic, this was a couple days ago. Joe Lacob's belief in Kaminga is well documented. The Warriors' controlling owner was a major draft night voice in 2021 when they selected Kaminga 7th. Lacob was seated courtside the entire Minnesota series as Kaminga shrugged off the rust and reminded the world about the scoring talent that resides within him. I brought this up in the conversation that we had on Friday. We'll hear more from here in just a little bit with Justin Rousseau on Clips and Dip. The Jonathan Kuminga in that series against Minnesota averaged 21 points on 54% shooting from the field, 54% from the field, 42% from three, 21 points a game. Even though the first game he only played 13 minutes. Now, they lost in 5, and Steph Curry was out after the first game. Therefore, he was getting more minutes. But some of these games were really close, 102-97. In a game, he had 30 points in game 3, I believe. They lost by 7 in game 4. He had 23. They lost by 11 in game 5. He had 26. Like, these weren't all blowouts where he was getting garbage time points. I disagree with Justin in that respect here, but we can hear more. And we'll push the conversation forward.
I mean, you're paying a guy $30 million, and he's maybe going to shoot 30% from 3, and as your 4, and that's just rough. Like in this climate of what the Clippers need to build around Kawhi and James, or even going forward. Like,
that's fair. And somebody else brings it up here. Shar says, not sure Kaminga's shooting is good enough to play next to Zoo, 33% from three. That's what his career three-point percentage is. One of the big unknowns is, how good is he going to be from the outside? How good can he be there on higher volume with a larger opportunity? Again, is this about a bad fit with Golden State, or is Kuminga just a bad fit for any team trying to win? Is he an empty numbers guy? I don't think that's conclusive yet, but some have read the situation that way with Golden State and Steve Kerr's reluctance to play him. They have a really sophisticated offense. Young players tend to struggle. So Steve Kerr has an argument for why he likes playing veterans over young guys, but he has played pods. Why not Kaminga? Is he not a hard enough worker? Is there more going on there? Attitude? I don't know. What I do know is this. He has had 4 months in his career the last 2 years where he's put up some really good numbers. Solid numbers for a 21 and a 22-year-old at the time. For instance, last season in December, Jonathan Kaminga in the month of December, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 games. He averaged 21 points on 46% shooting and 35.4% from three. Not great, not awful. Just below league average. 6 boards per game in 31 minutes per game. 21 points per game last December. Not nothing. Should be looked at. What about last year, the 23-24 season? Month of March, Jonathan Kaminga. It felt like he was really turning a corner then, the end of last year, heading into the playoffs, but they lost in the play-in to Sacramento. Kaminga in the month of March in 2024, 19 points per game. We're talking almost 15 games here, 51% from the field, 35.7% from three. Getting almost 30 minutes per game, averaging 19. Shooting numbers are solid. Month before that in February, 18 points per game, 54% shooting, just 21% from three there. And then the month of January, this is all part of the 3-month stretch in 2024 where Kaminga, he was getting playing time. I think they had some injuries, and it looked like this was his coming out party. Month of January 2024, 21 points per game, playing 30.5 minutes per game, almost at 60% from the field, 40% from three, 6 boards per game. These numbers are strong. Again, it's 4 months out of the last 2 years. So it's 15. I don't know. It's 50 games. It's not nothing for a guy that young to show potential. And it still makes me think he's got plenty of game in him. It's not unfounded to be excited about this young player still, even though he's been in the league for 4 years and hasn't gotten consistent playing time. And maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's a reason that's unfair. Maybe it's if Kerr can find a reason not to play Jason Tatum coming off winning the NBA Finals, I'm sure he can find a reason not to play Jonathan Kuminga. And Kerr's a great coach, great player, all-time winner. It's no shade, but maybe it just was bad fit. More from C&D on Friday.
You shouldn't give a guy $30 million a year and be like, hey, in a couple years, this is our guy. When in a couple years, you have to repay him likely more money if you do think he's your guy.
If he fulfills some of that potential, you will.
I'm not worried about the next contract after you give him, let's say hypothetically, 3 years, $30 million a year, $90 million total. And it's a complete hypothetical. I'm just saying that's my limit, basically. Maybe you could get him for $25 million a year, maybe 22, maybe 20. I don't know. Nobody really knows exactly what the market's going to be for him. That's an extreme in some ways. That's as much as I would go. 3 years, $90 million, because I'd rather pay him more with less years. So then if he is a bust or he never looks like a winning player, you're off the contract the summer of 2028. That's not the end of the world.
If not, you took a chance on a young guy. It didn't pan out. He's off the books.
But the problem with taking a chance on a young guy is there's a difference on taking a chance on a young guy at like 12 million a year and then doing it at 30 when you're going to run up against luxury tax and aprons and okay, if he doesn't pan out, now we got to try to move him, but who's taking him for 30 million? And it becomes taking flyers on guys, I think, is a lot harder now in this new CBA than it was in the past CBAs. And also, I think the biggest thing that actually works in Kuminga's favor.
All this is facts from Justin. I'm not saying it would be great to get him at 30 million per year. I'm saying I would take the risk. I would take the swing. That's as much as I would give him. Of course, you'd rather take a flyer on a guy for 12 million rather than 30. But I'll explain why and more of my thinking coming up here.
Is he was a lottery pick and people care about that 5 years into the NBA career because they think there's some untapped potential, but that just means you stick around longer if you haven't been good. Like, it's just really that simple. I don't think he's been an impact player any of the years he's been in the league. Yeah, he had a great 3.5 games for the Warriors to end the season. It also was pointless. It didn't mean anything.
Okay, I disagree with this. Like, I don't think there are like garbage time playoff games. Like, I think those minutes are valuable, are meaningful. Maybe not the most meaningful ever, but it's a second round playoff match. I can't just write that off and be like, oh, whatever. Those are inconsequential minutes.
And I'm very hesitant on a guy who can't shoot, isn't a good defender, can be a ball stopper, and not a high-level rebounder enough to fit in for $30 million a year. Like, if you're debating between him and John Collins, the difference between him and John Collins is John Collins rebounds better and can shoot. I'd rather pay John Collins $26.5 million a year over 30 to Kaminga.
It's just a ceiling thing, like who Kaminga could be versus who we know John Collins is.
Sure, but I think for the Clippers, they don't need to bank on what can be at this point of the time. They need to bank on what they know they're getting.
Here's where I disagree. And I know there's people in here, they're like, nice, pay a guy 30 million who's unproven. 30 million is too much, maybe. I can't get over a guy with as many questions as Kaminga has. James makes 35 and is all NBA. I do think that Kaminga would fit much better with LA, though. You think? An ISO team for a guy like that? I think it could be a good spot for him. All the people that are against this, just tell me who the Clippers are getting in the future. This isn't even so much about Kaminga as a player as it is about a philosophy that I'm trying to impart and persuade you with. The philosophy is you don't have your draft picks. How do you get young players with high ceilings? You have to make a move for one, either in free agency or in a sign and trade. Those players would be available, like Kaminga, because they have flaws, because they're not perfect. Like LaMelo. Maybe he's available too. But the Clippers aren't in a position, beggars can't be choosers, to say, hey, we're not going to take a risk on any of these guys right now. Why not? How many people in here are saying the Clippers' run of being a contender is over? I mean, how many people tell me that in the chat all the time? If that's the case, shouldn't they take some calculated risks? Shouldn't you try to find some diamonds in the rough? Shouldn't you try to find some really talented guys that for whatever reason their original team gave up on them and see if you can get more out of them? High draft picks? I actually think the Clippers might be in a position where they should do some of that. I understand playing it safe and going for more of a sure thing and John Collins, and I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. They brought in John Collins, I'd be happy about it. I'm just saying I can also see this other philosophy where you have to take some chances. And Kaminga is one of those guys. You can bring up all his flaws all you want. No kidding. That's why he's available. You're trying to have a reclamation project to some degree with a talented player that maybe was just in the wrong spot. That was a bad fit, that needed a change of scenery. To act like you can go out and get these perfect guys right now that are proven, it's like, well, if they're proven, if they're really good and they're young, their teams aren't giving up on them. That's the point. You have to get some of these fallen angels, as Lawrence Frank would put it. Now, if you believe the Clippers are one player away from a title and that one player is gettable, I'm all for it. I just think Kaminga could be one of those guys that could help them now and grow into a role of being a more relied upon top 3 player on this team in a couple years when James and Kawhi are no longer there. And maybe you could go through this transition period like Kawhi did with San Antonio, where you start off as more of a role player supporter guy, and then eventually you end up being one of the guys on your team. I have no idea if Kuminga can turn into anything like that. I'm not saying he's going to turn into the next Kawhi. I am saying I am looking for guys like that, and Kuminga is one of them, and it sounds like might be available. Yes, you would like for the financial risks to be less. No one's arguing that. But again, my point about the finances is cool story. They're going to have a ton of money because they only have one guy on the books in Ivica Zubac the summer of 2027. So if they miss on Kaminga, it doesn't cripple them. They have the books being pretty damn clean. They are well positioned to be able to take a chance on a guy. That to me isn't a great argument. Again, if it's more money on less years, I prefer that over more years, less money, or more total. Like, let's say you give him 120 over 5 years versus 90 million over 3 years. I'd rather go 90 million over 3. Because by then, you should probably know who Kuminga is. He'll at least be 26, I think, by the end of it. It ain't perfect, guys. It's not ideal. Neither is LaMelo. Neither are these other guys people brought up. They are projects. But maybe you hit on one of them and they turn into a much better player, and maybe you find your Jalen Brunson that way. Now, Brunson, granted, there was a lot more evidence that he could be the player he is today, but there was still not enough for people not to criticize how much the Knicks gave him initially. They thought they overpaid for Brunson. It turned out to be a steal. How do you find a guy like that? I like Anthony Simons. He's also already gotten paid to some degree. I'm for Anthony Simons. He's more of a known commodity, though, than Kaminga. He's making good money. More from C&D on Friday.
And with Kaminga, you don't know.
Are we sure? Are we sure they shouldn't bank on and take some risks right now? Like they should instead only do things that solidify.
Yeah. This is my point. Are we sure the Clippers should only take guys right now that are well known what they can do? Are we sure they should still be in this era of we're just going to make some moves and some tweaks on the margins and make this team a little bit better this summer than it was this year, and hope with the right breaks and the right path, they can get to the playoffs and get past the first round and make a run. I'm all for that. I think that's reasonable. I think that you can make the argument that the Clippers aren't that far away based upon the fact that, and I made this, they lost to a team in 7 in the Denver Nuggets, who then took the best team in the league that's going to win the championship, I think, in the OKC Thunder to 7. I'm fine with that rationale and philosophy. I'm also fine with saying, why not take a risk on a guy who I don't think is going to tank you, turn you into a 30-win team all of a sudden if they brought in Kuminga. Even if he's not great, the idea of Kawhi plays more than 37 games this year. Ivica Zubac is still getting better. James Harden maybe only plays 65 games, but let's say you get 55 games from Kawhi this year. You could still be in the hunt for 50 wins again, regardless of how Kaminga looks. So I don't see it as much of a risk as some people do, because the Clippers have so much money. And again, I've been making this argument. It's great to have cap room, but none of these guys, like SGA, like Luka, like Giannis, like Jokic, anybody that you think is a top 5 player or top 10 player in the league, like Tatum, none of these guys are going to end up becoming free agents. They're going to be on extensions. Luka's going to get his this summer. SGA is going to get his this summer. And so when you look right now and see, oh, these guys are going to be free agents in 2027 when the Clippers have all that money, it says that now because technically it's true. By the end of this summer, it won't be true. They will have extensions that will take them past 2027. So to say the Clippers are set up to have all this money available in 2027 for guys like that to go big game hunting after, that ain't true. You are going to have to trade to bring in top flight superstars. Nobody's dumb enough to let them go for nothing anymore. Every front office is getting smarter by the day. I'm telling you. Outside of Nico Harrison, maybe. They aren't having these failed asset management moments the way they used to. So I am telling you, I believe that it's more likely than not the Clippers are going to have to take a risk on guys with flaws and hope that when they become Clippers, they're able to shore up some of those flaws, those holes in their game, or they're able to put a team around them to mitigate some of their weaknesses, lessen them, and bring out a better player than they have shown in their previous stop. Kaminga, to me, fits the criteria as one of those guys. So does LaMelo. Trae Young, maybe. But all of them you're going to have to trade for still. Was there more from this?
Like, what are they in that place where we're still saying this is our year and they need to do everything to win a championship this year? Are we still in that place?
The West, for them, the puzzle of the West is there's one dominant team and everyone else is basically jumbled together. If you take the home run swing and it doesn't pan out, you're bottoming out.
See, I disagree with this. And it's hard to get everything in. There were 4 of us on the show, and Justin Russo's great, and we're deferring to him a little bit. I disagree with, if you swing and miss on Jonathan Kuminga next to Kawhi, James Harden, Ivica Zubac, maybe Norm Powell still be there. You might have to trade him for Kuminga. I don't think the Clippers are going to bottom out. I don't think Kuminga is going to tank them if they make a trade for him and he's not great next season. I just don't, even with how good the West is. But we do this every year where, like, how the West is this year is how it's always going to be or is going to be moving forward. He's right. There's one team in a tier of their own in the Oklahoma City Thunder, although they were still taken to 7 games by the 4 seed in the Denver Nuggets. They were beatable, I think. But right now it looks like there's one team head and shoulders above the rest. But last year was different. The year before that was different. Like, it's a different year every year. It looks on paper like it could be more competitive. I still don't think it's going to be so competitive that if Jonathan Kuminga turns out to have a C- season for the Clippers, that it's going to take them down to 35 wins or something. That would mean Kawhi plays even less games than this year for that to happen, or James Harden only plays like 50 games. A lot would have to go wrong, I think.
And now don't have a first round pick in 2026, and now you're a year longer into this run, and you're staring at the fact that, okay, well, James probably going to walk this offseason now, and now Kawhi's going to be an unrestricted free agent the year after, and basically you're burning through a year of Zoo's very valuable contract to take a swing on a guy who, if he doesn't pan out even in year 1, now you're kind of out of any chance of having any type of playoff success because of the ramifications of what his contract will do.
I just disagree. Like, it's not all going to fall apart if Kaminga doesn't prove to be a star at 23. I just don't. I don't think it would kill the Clippers because they have enough of an infrastructure support system, and they've proven time and time again that under Coach Lue, they have had lesser rosters that have gotten more out of them. But I understand the argument.
Like, if you add John Collins instead of him into this current Western Conference climate, the odds of the Clippers having as good of a season as they did this year and potentially better is far more likely than it is if you add Jonathan Kuminga, even at the same price point.
I don't disagree with that. I just don't also know if it puts you over the top or brings you into a different level of the Western Conference. Maybe it could if everything goes your way, but Kawhi's going to be 34. James Harden's going to be 36. Is there going to be a point where you should think about the future a little bit more?
That's kind of my question. Is there a way to thread the needle a little bit here while still trying to be competitive? If Kawhi's going to be here, if James is going to be here, you're still trying to be competitive. Does Kaminga indicate that you're not going to be just because you bring him in? I don't agree with that. I think Kaminga or bringing in a different young guy could help the Clippers now and then grow into a larger position in a couple years from now when those guys in Kawhi and James Harden are off the books. And you might have then a Jonathan Kuminga or somebody that's more ready for a star role, that they have the training wheels on, but they're getting valuable minutes. And I think he can still make you competitive now. He obviously hasn't tanked the Golden State Warriors, including in months when he was playing 30 minutes per game. The months I just showed you.
I think we need to I think we need to get rid of the idea of put them over the top. There is no top. It's
put them into
it's be competitive.
My over the top, and I didn't do a very good job articulating this. My over the top comment is kind of like, that's the best case scenario where if Kaminga really hits and you have a young star with James and with Kawhi. Is that likely? No.
Different tier of competitive teams in the Western Conference.
I
don't think that player's out there for not realistically.
My point is, okay, if that player's not out there realistically, that makes my case easier to bring in a young guy. If there is no guy that can put them over the top, then why not start planning for the future a little bit more with a guy with potential like Jonathan Kuminga? That's my point. And Will kind of goes in here on me, and I get it because I didn't lay it out as well as I should have, that I'm trying to do now so people understand my point about Kaminga. But
then does it not make sense to go for somebody that could help you now if he plays well and could help you in the future too?
I think you need to mitigate the floor versus look at the ceiling right now.
I'm with Will. I think there's like
We're just not even close to the championship tier right now. We see the team that's at the top. We're not close. We're not a player away. Like we're not a player away.
So I was trying to get in there and say, that's my point. If you're not that close, then you should probably be taking more risks on young guys. But it didn't happen, and I was talking, a lot. It was time for Will to get in here.
Neither of these guys that we're talking about is the young guy that's going to develop into the guy to make this team like competitive with that team. Not in their highest of projected ceilings right now. Maybe if they blow through that ceiling somehow, which I just wouldn't bet on. I think you need to mitigate the floor. Like you need to, hopefully make the picks that you still don't own the least desirable picks that you can. Stay competitive.
I disagree with this part. And I know a lot of people have said this. We need to win to make sure we don't give OKC Cooper flag, which obviously didn't happen this season. Guys, the OKC Thunder are in the finals. SGA is likely going to win the championship and win finals MVP. I don't think we should prioritize just making sure OKC's picks aren't too good and Philly's picks or their first round pick from us isn't too high of a pick either. I think we should worry more about ourselves than trying to save face with not making the trade look any worse than it already does right now with OKC in the finals and SGA winning the MVP. I just don't know if that should be the focus for why. Let's keep the team competitive enough just to make sure OKC doesn't get too good of picks. I think the Clippers should worry about themselves at this point because that ship has sailed. OKC is in the finals.
Put asses in the seats and call it a day, man. Like that, maybe you get out of a play. Maybe you can win a playoff series.
What I'll also say is,
I think if you can do all that while trying to find a young guy that can help you now and in the future, that's the ideal spot to be.
And that's kind of my overarching point. I think Kaminga could help you now. I think he has helped Golden State at times. Again, look at the last 3 months of last season with Kuminga playing a lot. Like we just did in the playoff series against Minnesota. I'm not going to discount playoff numbers. You can discount regular season numbers on a bad team sometimes. I'm not going to discount playoff numbers in at least 2 games that were pretty competitive between Golden State and Minnesota, where Kaminga looked pretty good. That's where I'm coming from. I see the other side, and I'm not in tear down mode. I want the Clippers to be competitive, even if it looks like it's a long shot to win a championship. I think there is something to being consistently good when losing doesn't get you your picks anyways. I just don't think it should be about, we don't want the OKC Thunder to get too good of picks from us because that's going to look really bad. I'm not interested in that. That part of it is over to me. I think the Clippers should be worried about themselves. If they think that they can bring in some young talent and there's going to be some growing pains, and yes, that means OKC is going to get better picks from us because we're going to have a worse record. But in the long run, it's going to benefit the Clippers by getting these young guys experienced, and they should probably do it if that's the direction they want to go. Garrett Griffin said, I agree. Clips played it safe this last year. Low risk signings, ducking the tax, etc. 2027 free agency is just not a viable plan to me, and swings need to be taken. That's all I have been saying over the last 3 weeks. As I continue to look down the line of who is going to become available, and who knows, there could be disgruntled players, and all of a sudden Donovan Mitchell is available, or somebody like that you wouldn't have known. The Clippers swoop in and get somebody, and they were right to not go after Kaminga or take these risks. And, I could end up being wrong. But I'm not saying the right move. They're making the wrong move if they're not getting Kaminga. Because, first of all, Golden State, they might not want to give him up. Joe Lacob likes him. In fact, more from what Anthony Slater said on The Athletic, he said Lacob, after the series against Minnesota in the playoffs this year, voiced to Kaminga his continued belief in his future, and wanted the young forward to keep an open mind about returning, league sources said. He invited Kuminga to sit courtside with him for the WNBA franchise opener for the Golden State Valkyries. The gesture, broadcasted everywhere locally, sent a clear signal to the outside world. This isn't a guarantee of anything. Lacob invited Thompson to play golf a month before Thompson left the franchise to go to the Dallas Mavericks, but it'll be a high bar to clear for Lacob to greenlight a sign and trade where he parts with Kaminga. Mike Dunleavy Jr. hasn't been as profusive with his praise and has generated a level of decision-making power made most clear in his execution of the Butler trade last February, which is viewed internally as a big success. He's on record stating his plan to maximize the present, but Dunleavy also has been particular and patient in his asset management and has been clear that he believes Kaminga has a skill set that can help this core. Quote, I look at the things JK does well, unquote. He said at his exit interview, quote, getting to the rim, finishing, getting fouled. These are things we greatly need. We know he can bring those to the table. It's not a hypothetical. It's not a guy in the draft that we think can do it. He's shown for 4 years he can do that. For that reason, we'll try to bring him back. That's Mike Dunleavy, their president of basketball operations on Jonathan Kuminga. So as much as people are saying, like, Kaminga, what does he do well? Getting to the rim, finishing, getting fat. Like, he thinks that Kaminga can play with them now. It could just be, spin from the organization. They'd like him back, but only at a certain price, and they'll offer him something. But if a team goes above that, they're not going to match it to keep him as as a restricted free agent. We have no idea what's going to come about with this and how much money is going to be offered. Again, my 3-year $90 million is the most I would give. It's not necessarily ideal. I'd rather get him for $20 million or for $15 million. I understand he is such a wild card. $30 million a year does sound like a lot. A couple of years it won't. Not as the salary cap continues to go up by 10% every year. It won't. It won't be as bad. I just think it's more about a philosophy of what you do moving forward right now. And Kaminga is exhibit A for me. Why you would bring him in. No, he's not the perfect right now looking at his shooting splits power forward to put next to Ivica Zubac, because as I've said many times, you have to have somebody there that can shoot. Kuminga has had months where he's shot it very well from three, or well enough from three, I should say. Is that who he is? Or him being a 33% three-point shooter in his career overall, is that who he is? Is that really a large enough sample size? I just think the jury's still out on Jonathan Kaminga as a player. He's only taken 611 three-pointers in his career while shooting 33% from the outside. In the playoff series, he looked good from distance. Even smaller sample, but it at least, had some stakes to it in a high-pressure situation and him getting an opportunity, and he took advantage of it. He balled out. To people who don't want Kuminga or don't want LaMelo or don't want all these guys that have serious flaws, tell me who they're getting. Call in, Adam Richard. You got something to say? Tell me who the Clippers can get realistically. You want Julius Randle? How much is he going to make? Did you see what just happened in that series against OKC? He had some real low points again. He's had consistently, outside of 2 playoff series this year, he has struggled in the playoffs overall in his career, Julius Randle. For the right price, sure. But if he's opting out of, it's like $30 million, how much is he expecting to get if he opts out? His player option, yes, is for $30 million for next year. He will be 31. Give me some of the guys who are going to be available in free agency, actually available. Not if you look at it now, it says SGA is going to be available in 2027, but he's getting the contract extension this summer. So is Luka. They're not going to be available. That Mexican Nar said he'd rather have LaMelo than Kuminga, okay, or than Julius Randle. He will give us highlights at least. Yeah, for the right price. What's that price, Adam? Put a number on it. You guys, if you're going to complain about, oh, I don't want this guy or not this guy, then tell me the guy and tell me what you're paying him. Because it's really easy to disagree without a specification. I put a number on what the most I would offer to Kaminga is. Thomas Ortega says, can we get Porzingis? Probably. I don't know how much they're going to want. You probably could. They're probably going to have to sell low. Porzingis coming off the viral infection, he did not look right at all. He looked he looked thinner than usual. Garrett said, hope Clipper fans will see that Ty Lue will play young players if they are actually good. No one the Clips have acquired outside of Man or Coffee have been good, so they don't play. Our young guys are bad. This has been my point, too. People are criticizing Coach Lue for not playing young players. Who of these young players have ended up turning into something? You want to talk about Brandon Boston putting up 15 points on a miserably bad Pelicans team, or Moussa Diabate getting 15 rebounds on a terrible Charlotte Hornets team, or Kai Jones having a couple of games with the Mavs? Like, you want to talk about some garbage time stuff? First of all, when those guys have done well, a lot of that development was still with the Clippers. The majority of their development took place with the Clippers. People keep saying, oh, look at the development in these other places. Like, they briefly have been there. The Clippers should probably get some credit for what they did. I asked Adam Richard for specifics, and he didn't give anything. Yeah, we'll see how the Zion situation plays out in court, I guess. It's a legal matter. I was thinking about doing a show on Zion last week and talking about that possibility, but obviously I'm not doing that now. Adam Richards said, I think run it back because we have to, but trade Norm for a power forward. Sure, that's the most likely thing that happens. Thomas Ortega says Keon Johnson. Like, yeah, how many of these guys ended up being great somewhere else? Like, why didn't Coach Lue play Keon Johnson more? Or Fiano Cavangeli more? They didn't turn out to be very good anywhere. After Jordan Miller's first stint, he struggled. Once Russell Westbrook ripped him in that game against Denver when he went left, it just seemed like he lost his confidence, and then he wasn't taking threes anymore. Kobe Brown isn't hitting threes in the G League, guys. If he's not hitting threes, I don't know who he can be as a player. That's a requirement. I'm high on Cam Christie too, but I still have hope in Jordan Miller. I have more question marks about Kobe Brown just because he had one good season where he shot well from three. It was his last season in college, and outside of that, he hasn't been a three-point shooter. No, I'm not giving up on Jordan Miller. But again, Jordan Miller and Kobe Brown are turning 26 next January. They aren't young anymore. And the other thing there are plenty of things to criticize Coach Lue for, and I criticized him in this series pretty extensively. I thought it was his worst series. Doesn't mean I want him gone. I just think he didn't have a great series against Denver. But this whole why doesn't he play young guys? It's coming from the same people that would criticize them for losing if they did play young guys. You guys would all say, why are the Clippers losing? It's like, well, do you want to play young guys or not? Because there's going to be growing pains. Do you want to win or do you want to play young guys? Because it's really tough to do both. Now, I think you could play Jonathan Kuminga because his team has been winning when he plays, and it's not going to take the season for the Clippers if he's still next to Kawhi and James Harden out there on the court. I don't know. Some of these comments and opinions sound a little bit like Clippers Reddit to me. Maybe I should get to that before we're out of here.
Off the air.
We're not off the air yet. I have seen people talk about Kevin Durant as of late. Yeah, people bringing up Jaden Ivey. Why is Detroit giving him up? Garrett Griffin said, I don't blame the Clips for not hitting on late first round and mid second round picks, but it has really hurt their rosters over the years. Man was the only hit, and he was pretty average. Man and Coffee have played well for them. Coffee went undrafted. I would say go look at everybody's draft history over a 10-year period and tell me how many guys they hit on versus how many swings and misses there were. And you're going to see, like, you hit on guys like 30% of the time. I do remember Jason Preston. I want to do something that I may regret. It's in the title of this episode. Clippers Reddit is a battleground, like every subreddit tend to be that's team-oriented. People arguing and trolling and just saying vile things to one another, hiding behind a keyboard. That happens a lot. I see it in the comment section here. It's not that much different. But Clippers Reddit has like a certain stigma to it. Like, oh, that's a cesspool. You're not going to find answers there. You're not going to find strong opinions, sound opinions there. And maybe you won't. But I'm sick and twisted, and I kind of want to see what's going on there. So I thought I'd bring it up. Let's check out Clippers Reddit. All right. First thing we do is see a Bleacher Report post of the Paul George NBA Finals with a comment, all you can do is laugh. In a few years, it will be Clippers versus Sixers. Somebody's saying that there. Let me see here. Oh, I lost it. Sorry, guys. I'll pull it back up here. It is the Paul George NBA Finals. It is. He has to address this on Podcast P. Now people are saying, well, this actually bodes well. Next year will be the Sixers and Clippers Finals confirmed. I like that. We're a year away from that. A lot of people have forgotten what happened to get Halliburton. Well, the Pacers traded Paul George to OKC for Victor Oladipo and Sabonis. Sabonis eventually was traded to Sacramento for Halliburton. Buddy Hield was in there too, but that's how you end up with this matchup. So, okay, Clippers Reddit. Not bad, not bad. What else do we got? Hey! Don't be refreshing on me that easily. Some people are talking about here, will waiting for OKC to release high-quality players they can't fit on their team become a possible free agency route for the Clippers? This ain't bad. I don't hate this. OKC has so many picks and players they will have to pay, and they will have to start releasing young players yearly in the coming years. The next 3 years, they have 2 firsts and 1 second yearly. If the NBA is smart, they will refuse to trade for those picks and force OKC to release up to 1 to 2 high-picked young players a year. Don't help them out, NBA teams trading with OKC. Well, you know, the Chicago Bulls didn't help them out because they didn't get a first-round pick from them. When they traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey and somehow didn't get a first from a team holding all of them. Somebody in here said they'll just let guys like Hart and Caruso or Dort go after their contracts expire, keep young players like Case and Wallace, and keep drafting. They only need to hit on like 25% of their picks to have a good rotation. It is remarkable. Sam Presti deserves a ton of credit. I've always thought he was great, even though people would always bring up, he let James Harden go. It's like, look at it at the time. It makes some sense. Small market, didn't want to go over the luxury tax. It helped them keep Serge Ibaka, I believe. They had plenty of scoring there anyways. They really need what James Harden provided over a big man. I don't fault him too much for that. Guys make mistakes. Every GM does. 25% is a high hit rate, somebody said, for us with the Clippers. It's the truth. Go look at anybody's draft history. You'll see the same thing. Somebody said, yeah, good players and younger than ours, plus 9 picks in 3 years is more than letting 3 players walk. OKC eventually may run into a problem where they can't pay all their young guys with J-Dub and Chet. Now, I believe they're still under contract for 2 more years. Let's see here. Since we're going down this rabbit hole. Let me see Jalen Williams' contract. Jalen Williams, the all-star, not the big man off the bench for them. J-Dub is who we're talking about here. Is this the guy that's coming up? He's only making $4 million. Is that accurate? Yeah, he's on a real... No. That was the other J-Dub. Okay. No, that was right. He is making $4 million this year. It's a club option. Crazy they picked that up in OKC. $6 million, $6.5 million next year. They'll pick that up as well. Then he's a restricted free agent. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, in the summer of 2026. So, you going to make a run at him then, Clipper Nation? I seriously doubt there's any number that you could throw out there, whatever the max is for him at that time, that OKC would not match. What about Chet Holmgren? They don't have 2 Chet Holmgrens on that team, so easier to find what I'm looking for when it comes to salaries. Chet is making $10 million this year, make it 11, and $14 million next year, and then he's a restricted free agent. So same summer, same guy. They're both with OKC for at least 1 more year after this. Then they're restricted free agents, and they have to figure out how to spend that money wisely and hold on to both. Somebody might have to take a pay cut to do so, but I think they'll find a way. I do, especially with how good they looked at the end of the series in the conference finals against Minnesota, where it looked like they had a true big 3 all of a sudden. They did. Like, it was all coming together for OKC. Wasn't just SGA. Some people are saying Chet Holmgren, after injury, is so good. He'd be a perfect Clipper. I mean, yeah, he'd work next to Ivica Zubac because he can shoot it. Garrett said, I almost guarantee that Chet and J-Dub are not the only guys that will be leaving. You guarantee. Shout out Inside the NBA. They're not going anywhere. They'll just be on ESPN now. Urban said, I really want to pick up the big man, Jalen Williams from OKC. I think he'll be cheap and a good backup. What do you think, Adam? I don't hate that. I think that's kind of the theme of this Reddit post. Like, how can you pick up some of these other guys? Some of these other quality players. Aaron Wiggins, Carson Wallace, the other J-Dub out there. It typically happens that way. A good team that wins a championship, guys get picked off, but we don't necessarily see a team this young very often competing for a championship. So we have some draft talk here. Ooh. This is interesting on Clippers Reddit. Clippers rank as number 20 in terms of toxicity on social media. So is this getting kind of meta? Because the entire idea of this is the toxic nature of Clippers Reddit, but they're only ranked 20th according to an article that was posted on Clippers Reddit. So where are the Lakers at? It's the first thing I want to know here. They're only 14th in toxicity on social media. Who's number one? Dallas? How'd this information come about? Is this a Gallup poll? What is this? Where's the original link? This is Vegas Insider, source Vegas Insider. Percentage of negative comments, 32%. Well, this actually makes sense. Why would Dallas have that much negativity? Percentage of negative comments is at 32.5% because of what happened with Nico Harrison. The Boston Celtics are number 2. That could be because a lot of negative comments after Jason Tatum blew his Achilles. Minnesota is number 3. That could be because Anthony Edwards is a little bit polarizing, and they were just in the conference finals and probably talking a lot of S. Memphis is number 4. Huh. John Morant, Triple J, Desmond Bain. But the Clippers, we're just 20th, guys, in terms of toxicity on social media. Only 28% of the comments regarding the Clippers on social media are negative comments. So let's go to the comment section and see how that lines up. Some people immediately saying, why aren't the Lakers top 3? They were 14th. I can't take this list seriously. Others supporting that, saying they are 100% responsible for any toxicity related towards the Clippers. Lakers in a good mood. In a normal year, Lakers and Mavs would switch positions, but not this year. That makes sense. Reddit coming through here. Somebody saying, obviously it's based on social media posts, but what is their proof of negative versus average comment? Yeah, like what's the threshold? Do they just look for certain words, triggering words or buzzwords or F-bombs or Pound in Pavement said underneath this subreddit, Clippers have the smartest, most logical fans. Administrative responded immediately and most depressed. Oh, that hit deep right there.
Not too bad, I hope.
Not too depressed.
Not too bad, I hope.
Someone else said clinically. I don't see a survey on that. Where's the research? Prove it. Everybody's just in disbelief that the Lakers aren't top 3. Somebody said, yeah, clearly they don't read this Reddit for the Clippers to only be 20th in negative comments. Somebody said, which really tells you how miserable the 19 fan bases ahead of us are, as we're a toxic as F bunch. So Clippers Reddit, very self-aware of how toxic they are. Somebody said, realistically, the Blazers have the best and least toxic fan base. Yeah, who were they? So San Antonio is 30th here. Portland's 28th, so they're on the less toxic side. Washington Wizards 29th. There seems to be a correlation overall between bad teams and less negative comments. The better teams are on the higher end of this list, although New Orleans is 11th somehow. Oh, and this was before the report regarding Zion. Anything else? Somebody said we're slacking, only being 20th. Someone said I met some a-hole Hornets fans. Is that what AH means? Wizards fans in acceptance phase because they're pretty low with the negativity. Everyone making the joke here about Clippers Reddit. They must not have measured it using Clippers Reddit here. All right, here's a post from 2 days ago on Clippers Reddit. Norm is one of my favorites, but if we can't re-sign him next year, we should trade him now. How many picks do we get for him? All right, let's see how sensible and reasonable they are here talking about trading Norman Powell on Clippers Reddit. This is the new segment where I just scroll through and see how much crazy stuff is being said on Clippers Reddit. We'll see if you guys like this. So this is Claw Time. making this post. Norm is one of my favorite players on the team. I've been a big fan of him since we got him. I immediately knew what we had in him, and I wasn't surprised by his great play this season because I knew he could do it. I always got annoyed when people said we could trade him before they saw how good he was. Everyone wanted to trade him for cheap, and I didn't understand his worth. But now that he showed out and the fact that this is the last year in his contract, I think we should trade him while we can possibly net us, or while he can possibly net us the most. Front office has said they don't want to re-sign players and instead want to have money freed up for star free agents in the upcoming years. So we likely won't be re-signing Norm Powell. If that's the case, we need to trade him now. It's not exactly what the front office has said. You're reading tea leaves, but I don't think it's necessarily inaccurate. How much do you think we can trade or we can get for trading Norm Powell? How many first-round picks do you think he's worth? And what other players do you think we could trade him for? I think Powell's worth at least 2 first-round picks, even more possibly. Okay, that is aspirational. This is Clippers Reddit being very fan biased here. A great scenario would be trading Powell for picks and then using those new picks to get Zion without giving up any of our picks. Oh, boy. All right, this is dated. This was from 2 days ago. I know a lot of people are super down on Zion, but his value is lowest now, and that's good for us. And he hasn't been healthy often, but I think that's because he isn't motivated to stay and play in New Orleans. All right, the Zion thing is killing me here. I'm going to jump ahead. A longer shot is getting KD. Although if we get KD, it would be for just 1 year likely, since he's expiring, and we shouldn't extend someone that old, in my opinion, for the money he'd be asking for. I do think KD is more gettable than people think, though. Norm plus Bogdanovich would work contract-wise to get Zion, which I think could be our best move to make. That, didn't age well in just 2 days. We'll see. There's alleged rape allegations going on. We'll see how it plays out. First comment, this Norm scenario of where he could end up is trade now. Sorry, his value will tank fast. Comment to that. Does no one here remember we tried to trade him 2 or 3 years ago and had literally 0 teams that bit? Laughing my ass off. We're not going to get much for him. And then someone said, and that was 2 or 3 years ago. Norm's value and name recognition has skyrocketed this season and proved that he can be a legitimate second or third scoring option in the 40-game stretch that Kawhi was out. The guy was literally averaging 25 on elite efficiency. Teams like the Wolves, Cavs, and Magic will absolutely bite if Norm is on the table. Someone said, yeah, we should try to trade Norm and roll that trade into getting a great player whose value is low right now. I think we could get Zion. Okay. I can't do the Zion thing right now. This is really bad timing. Here's what I want to see. Somebody said 1 first guaranteed, 2 if we're lucky. Claw Time, the original poster of this question about Norm and what we could get for him, said, I think we can get at least 2 for him. He played amazing for most of this year, averaging 24. His downturn in the last stretch is easily explained by the injury he had at the end of the year. I think a lot of other front offices could be sold on the idea of having Norm as their starting all-star level shooting guard. I disagree with Claw Time. I don't think they're getting 2 first-round picks for Norm Powell because of the fact that he brings up. Here's where the fan bias comes in. Claw Time's like, we have to trade him because you're going to have to pay him soon. Well, other teams also know you have to pay him soon. And so that's not as desirable in some ways. While you could look at it as an expiring contract, it's also how much you're going to give up for a guy that's an expiring contract. And then if you realize, well, we want to keep him or we're trading him to sign him, that still means you're committing to probably $100 million to Norm Powell. And therefore, you know that, and you might not want to give up that much in a trade because you're the one that is taking or assuming a lot of the risk with signing him to the long-term deal that we're all saying the Clippers won't. Somebody responded to that and said, to that being the original poster that I just responded to, saying not getting 2 first-round picks unless they are both the end of the first round. Norm could probably get a decent first. Given his age and contract expiring, he should have good value, just nothing crazy. I think he has decent value, but again, 2 first-round picks, yeah, maybe if it's back end, bottom 5 of the first round. Somebody, I don't think this is Christina Pink, but they're using an avatar. I have no idea how this works. They're Christina Pink fan, I guess, because other people are using a banner that says Buffalo Braves, other people Brandon Boston Jr. They're saying we'll be lucky to get 1 decent pick. He only has 1 year left and is looking for an extension. No way a team gives up 2 picks for that situation. That's kind of where I'm at. It's a blessing and a curse in some ways. Cool, it's an expiring. Not cool to give up a lot for an expiring because it could be a rental. Who is this troll Adam in here? Trade him for Muggsy Bogues or Dan Marino? This seems like a Redditor right here. Too bad we're the worst franchise in history, or else it would be worth playing another season. I think this is a trolling, Adam. There's too much trolling going on between me reading a toxic forum on Clippers Reddit and then this guy being toxic in the chat on Clippers Talk. Everybody chill. Somebody else being rational says, we aren't getting a huge return for Norm on an expiring contract. Teams won't want to break the bank for 8 months up Norm. I'm going to bring up something and add to the conversation, not because I'm going to log into, Clippers Twitter here or Clippers Reddit here, but I am going to say this. I was talking with my friend Bob Schmidt of the Fear the Fro, the podcast, and we were discussing Ty Jerome and how much money he could make. He thinks he could be a non-taxpayer mid-level exception guy. So anywhere between like 10 and 14 million that he could get. But knowing the Clippers' needs, Bob Schmidt actually brought up something kind of interesting in a trade with Norman Powell, because I do think the Orlando Magic could be interested in him. And there's a lot of reporting regarding that. But he brought up 2 players on the Magic that would fill some needs for the Clippers in a trade for Norman Powell. One of them being Cole Anthony. He could be your backup point guard then. I like Cole Anthony. He's still young. He's not a great 3-point shooter. He's 35% for his career, but 13 points per game. He's not huge. He's only 6'2". I know Clippers like positional size, but would you be interested in a young 24-year-old, Cole Anthony, and the other player is a big man coming over from Orlando in Goga Batadze, who averaged 7 and 6 in 20 minutes per game off the bench for Orlando last year, the center position, and 1.4 blocks in just 20 minutes. He's a better, more physical defender than people realize. Goga, Cole Anthony for Norman Powell. Where are you guys at with that? I don't hate it. Fills 2 needs there. Something I throw out. I don't know. It's not the worst idea. It wasn't even mine. It was Bob Schmidt's. Other people talking about Eric Dixon should be our guy in the draft. People talking about the draft thinning out because players are staying in college if they're not going to be top 10 picks. Others on Reddit said, this is Clippers Reddit in a nutshell. When will Ballmer just start throwing out millions to buy first-round picks? They have bought into the second round multiple times. The NBA literally changed the CBA to stop him from spending. Take advantage of the rules. It doesn't count against the cap. The first comment, never, because he can't. Teams value picks more than you are allowed to pay them directly. Second rounders have far less value and can be cheap. Somebody else pointed out how there's a limit to how much cumulative cash can be sent in trades in a league year. Then they supported it with some information. So while we had a wild original post, people came in and, the community corrections were fast and swift. Ballmer should just use his money to buy all the first-round picks for the Clippers. Somebody else being a doomer said they'll just draft Jerome Robinson or Jason Preston. I get it. They've had some bad draft picks. Everybody has had some bad draft picks. Clippers Reddit said this. They posted an article from Matt Issa of Sports Money, a business article that said 2025 NBA free agents. Amir Coffey is the league's best kept secret. The title on Clippers Reddit said, not sure about that. This is a good year, I would say, in some ways for Amir Coffey to be a free agent because the free agent class isn't great. So he could end up getting more money because he's one of the better players available. I'm interested to see how that goes. I think it's unlikely he returns as a Clipper. Love Amir, but I think the writing was on the wall, obviously, during that playoff series when they weren't playing him and maybe trying to save him and make sure he doesn't get hurt. And maybe also because I didn't have the most belief in him in a playoff series after what happened last year against Dallas. He really struggled, and it just wasn't a good fit for him against Denver. I don't know. I can see the argument for Amir playing more in that series. What are the comments under this post here on Clippers Reddit? Somebody said, calling it now, Coffey goes to another team and plays great, and people are going to say the front office is stupid for letting him go. Hold on to your hate, Coffey receipts, because we see y'all. Hold on to those receipts. People would flip quickly. Somebody said, laughing my ass off, bro. The people to this day that say that about KPJ really exposes themselves. The situation called for letting KPJ go and it made sense. I don't care if he made first team all NBA with the Bucks. He wasn't a fit with LA and they needed his money off the books for next season. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that if Amir Coffey goes on to play better, even though they're saying right now that, Amir shouldn't be looked at as that great, they would be like, of course, he left the Clippers. It became better. Somebody said, I'm good with it. I hope Coffey gets his bag wherever he goes. Happy we were able to give T-Man a bag, then pass it off to someone else too. Yeah, if Coffey ends up leaving, he's definitely going to pop off somewhere else. Somebody said Lakers could use him. That could hurt. Somebody else pointed out, I don't know why y'all hate on Amir. He's 50, 40, 90 as a sweet midi. He's been a great bench player. Amir's been solid. He has outperformed his contract, no doubt, hence why he's going to get paid more. So, yeah, if Amir goes somewhere else, gets his money, I'll be happy for him too. He's been a good Clipper. Our next post here on Clippers Reddit. Elton Brand or Blake Griffin? Who was better in their prime? I always saw a lot of similarities between the player Blake was trying to become with his handles and jumper and who Elton Brand was, although he obviously never came close to Elton in regard to jump shooting ability. On the other hand, Brand is obviously outmatched by Griffin when it comes to athleticism and driving ability. Blake did have post moves on par with Elton, in my opinion. First comment. All these F. Elton Brands in the comments are forgetting he didn't leave us. He left Donald Sterling. How can you have loyalty to that? Somebody said he left his buddy Baron Davis hanging. I know there's some sour or some bad feelings towards Elton Brand for how he left. They thought he was staying, and then he bounced. It really didn't amount to much in the end. He was never the same after the Achilles injury. The Clippers may have dodged a bullet there, although I am a big Elton Brand fan. And I do think this is an interesting comparison because Elton had a very short peak because of the Achilles injury. Elton Brand was a monster at his best. I thought he maybe was a top 10 player in 06 in the league. He was really good. Obviously, the Clippers made that run to the second round against Phoenix, but he was really good in the playoffs. He was really good in the regular season. He averaged 21 and 9. The only reason he didn't get more rebounds because he was playing next to Chris Kaman. But he played 39 minutes per game. It's about 53% from the field. Excuse me, it was 25 and 10 that year. I was looking at 06, 07. And he was 7th in MVP voting that year and 10th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. So that 05, 06 version of Elton Brand, and this is why I say, he peaked and then it was over, because he had one more year before the Achilles tear. But 05, 06 Elton Brand, I may take over the best version of Blake Griffin. He was 26 then, Elton Brand. Now, Blake had a season where I think he finished top 3 in MVP voting, maybe 2013, 2014. Elton Brand, though, I think the argument is more substance than style. And he was a more well-rounded player. And obviously, here on Reddit, they're talking about him and his jumper. Somebody said, I also had season tickets throughout the EB and Blake eras. Hands down, Blake, his skill set was overlooked because of his athleticism. He was a better ball handler and playmaker, and he grew to be a better shooter. He peaked with 3rd in MVP voting in 2014. There you go. His year after he left with the Pistons is underrated as he carried that team. Can't see why anyone would think EB over BG, but we can't agree on one thing. And they're saying F. Elton. They're still mad about him leaving the Clippers the way he did, even though, he was never the same player in Philly. Someone else said, growing up, I emulated his offensive rebounding, pump fake, go up for the layup and draw the foul. Sometimes get the and one, and he was great at rebounding, never had a squad around him, and a shitty owner. Somebody said, Blake, 6-time All-Star as a Clipper, 19 points per game. Brand, 2-time All-Star as a Clipper, 16 points per game. Blake clears. Somebody points out right away, or the original poster said, the post was in regards to their prime. During the playoff Elton year, his statistics were on par with the best in the league. He was way more of a reliable offensive option than Blake ever was. Blake's all-star appearances happened because of his athleticism and his marketability, not his skill. Somebody said, no, he wasn't. Elton Brand had his moments, but he wasn't as dominant as you're making it seem. And Blake was going through competition in the playoffs, and his career playoff stats are better. You're not making 6-time All-Star just off athleticism alone. Elton Brand could not get the job done on the Clippers. I wouldn't say that. Like, prime Elton Brand he only played 12 playoff games because he didn't make the team that much better, while Blake has over 30. If Elton Brand was playing next to prime CP3, I think it's a totally different argument. I don't like this. Well, prime Elton Brand only played in 12 playoff games. Like, his team wasn't as good. He didn't have a floor general like CP3. Somebody said 05, 06 Elton Brand was his only great year when he got into amazing shape. There was MVP talk the first half of the season, then it tailed off. Blake had 2 peaks, 2013 and 2018. 2018 is really underrated. He carried a horrible Detroit team to the playoffs. Blake made All-NBA 4 years in a row and 5 times overall, Elton once. I do think the first full season from Blake Griffin with Detroit, we saw a brief glimpse in that 1 year from Blake of him really carrying an offense. And he was more well-rounded as a player, was taking more threes. He was an engine to an offense in ways that I had hoped he could be early on, but he had CP3 next to him, so they didn't need that. Honestly, I think Elton may have been better. I can't say a better fit next to CP3, but he would be more dependent on CP3. Like, I think Blake, you could build around more because of the athleticism and the skill that he added later, and maybe the skill would have been there sooner if he didn't play next to CP3, and he could have been, more of an offensive hub and a heliocentric guy, Blake Griffin. I could see that more so than EB. But EB in a more positional league back in the mid-2000s, he was very dominant. So I think I'll give the edge to Blake, but I don't know. Elton Brand, no, don't get me wrong. I love Sam Cassell, but that wasn't prime CP3. That wasn't prime Sam Cassell. People bringing up. Then we got Zach Randolph. I don't know. Elton Brand, I think, is more of a what if story. They're both kind of what if stories, though. Blake was in his prime longer, or had more prime years, I guess. I think Blake overall is the better player, but there's something to the reliability of Elton Brand in that 05-06 season and how good he was in the playoffs. Let me see what his playoff numbers were then. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure he was really dominant and everything translated to the playoffs that year. So in the series against Denver, where they won in 5 games, these aren't monster numbers, 18, 10, shooting 47% from the field. But the series against Phoenix, Elton Brand averaged 31 and 10 and 3 blocks per game while playing 46 minutes per game. That's incredible. He shot 59% from the field. Blake's series against the Spurs might be his best. Let me see. I want to say the first round series against the Spurs, because it probably wasn't the Houston series. Maybe the Memphis series. No, you got hurt. Let me see here. The series against San Antonio in 2015, Blake Griffin averaged 24, 13, and 7. He shot 47% from the field. He was great. It's right there, being just as good in many ways. I mean, his numbers were good against Houston too. 27 and 12, 55% from the field. Yeah, I will give the edge. Blake was better, but EV was no slouch. And they won their first playoff series ever in 2006 with him. All right. I think I'm good with this episode with Clippers Reddit here. Unless somebody actually wants to call in. Yeah, like Elton Brand was the more refined player, Mike. His post moves were much better. I remember he had really long arms. I remember one time they showed him, and obviously Chris Kaman was like 3 inches taller than him. But when they held their arms up, Elton Brand's arms actually were longer. Elton was really, really skilled. If you could combine these two players, you got like a top 5 power forward ever. Yeah, Thomas Ortega talked about him as a shot blocker for only being 6'9" because of those long arms he had. And Blake, the tragedy about Blake is by the time he became much more skilled, his athleticism had left him. The injuries added up. And so that brief moment, the last couple of years, his last year with the Clippers before he was traded into that first year with Detroit, you saw what could have been, I think, as a player where he was just doing everything as a number 1 option. You saw it that year when CP3 was out and he finished, third in MVP voting, Blake. But it was just like little glimpses of him really realizing his full potential. Yeah. It's Blake. It's definitely Blake getting the edge over EB for longevity as playing at a higher level. And also he probably peaked even a little bit higher, slightly. But EB's peak was no joke. EB's more underrated than Blake, and I think that was the point of the post. Clippers Reddit, there wasn't anything too crazy here, I got to say. Maybe I'll do more of this moving forward. Easy content. Just piggybacking off of them. All right. Appreciate y'all. I'm Adam Osland. This has been another edition of Clippers Talk. Ooh, programming note coming up on Tuesday morning. We'll have Beto Duran on from the Evil Four Letter. Obviously, he's on ESPN 710 doing the same thing I do for the Clippers on AM 570 LA Sports. He does pre-half and post stuff for the Lakers. And I thought since we talked about Lauren Rosen, and check out that show on Wednesday with her, things we learned in the playoffs with Lauren Rosen about this Clippers team and learning through other teams in the playoffs. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about if we can learn from each other with the Clippers and Lakers both being bounced in the first round. And maybe Beto Duran and I can bounce some things off each other. Maybe, fresh pair of eyes, him giving some opinions on the Clippers, me giving some on the Lakers. Maybe we can help each other. I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a trade that could be made between these two teams that could be beneficial for both of us. They're not getting Zubats, though. I'm sorry. You can't have them back. That's over. So Beto Duran, Tuesday morning here on Clippers Talk. I'm Adam Osland. Appreciate y'all. Right, almost 2.5 hours. Didn't know we were going to go that long here, but it was good to be back in studio, actually. I'll be doing more of this, I think. Maybe not Tuesday morning, but more of this, because I do want to take phone calls at some point. I do want to hear from Clavon. I want to hear from everybody. And I want to hear stuff like this.
I don't know. What did the numbers say? Shit.
We're getting any phone calls tonight. People in here, but too scared to call in for whatever reason. I know it's late notice, and maybe we'll have more of a Sunday night schedule here on Clippers Talk. I kind of like the Sunday night stuff. All right. I'm Adam Osland. We will talk to you Tuesday morning.
Off the air.